Okay, hello GMAN 3B. GMAN 3B indeed, and welcome along to your week one recap. I'm sure you're all tremendously excited that we have completed 1/13 of the season, and we've got a little bit to get through, haven't we? So if you're unaware of how my recaps work, the first thing we always do is award our Performance of the Week award to the team who, it's entirely my choice, who I think has produced the best result this week. And for week one, that is Maze of Torment. So, congratulations to the Necro. They have run out victorious in their first game this week against Dusseldorf Rheinfire. 2-1 was the result. And you can see the game there in the background now. 19 armor breaks for Maze of Torment is plenty. We'll come on to a bit more of that as we go through the show, but 2 expulsions suggesting that there was a high fouling game played here against the Elves as well. But of those of us, and there's only 3 at the moment who are playing the little prediction competition, I don't think anybody had this as a Necro win. In fact, I had it as a draw, and Lord Brainlord and GMAN both had this as a Dark Elf victory. So the good news is that we know absolutely nothing about Blood Bowl, which is always a strong start to a recap series. But there you go, 2-1 win for Maze of Torment, who gives them the Performance of the Week award. So we can wrap up the rest of the results now. Here they are. So, Smargy Severa yet to get underway in 3B because, of course, they had the bye week that has been processed and they have won that 1-0, as you all will when you face the bye week. The Greenhorns running out 2-0 winners against Gorkacidal Tendencies. That was a rivalry week matchup, as you can see by the little explosion behind the scoreboard there. So a win for Train Ra against Zunk. Third Guardians 2, the Sit Down Boys 2. So the highest scoring match of the week ends in a draw between the Lizards and the Pro Elves. The Happy Sons 1, Bitten Heroes 0. Is a kind of a result with an asterisk next to it. The Orcs run out 1-0 winners there. The game was actually abandoned with a disconnect issue on turn 7, with the score at 1-0 to the Orcs. And the admin ruling was that the result should stand as it is. The coaches weren't able to arrange a replay, or were too far into the game to arrange a replay. So the Orcs getting a sort of half default 1-0 win there, though they had earned their own touchdown. But all the casualties and SPP that had been earned up to that point in the game were allowed to stand, with each team being awarded a random MVP, as you'd expect. In another rivalry match, there we go. And when I'm struggling for words, this one should be a laugh. Umweltschützerinnen. Let me know if I'm mangling that. They won 2-0 against Grail Knights Cavalry, as I think was expected. The Bretonians have got a bit of a hard task this season, and that really, really stacked Amazon team is probably the hardest, or one of the hardest of those tasks, with just so much blodge and dodge running around. But all that put to one side, the Player of the Week award, which is also a thing, did come from that match, and that goes to King Louis the Righteous for the Grail Knights Cavalry. So the Player of the Week award, very simply, goes to the player who earns the most SPP in a game week that does not include the randomly awarded MVP. And in the case of a tie, as there was this week between King Louis and a Witch Elf for Dusseldorf Rheinfire, Skylar Dwarf Armor Rhodes, who both got, in fact, no, that one got the MVP, didn't it? So it wasn't even a tie. But King Louis racking up a whopping 4 casualties against Umweltschützerinnen. This is just never going to get any better, is it? So despite the fact that they lost, the Bretts needed to do damage, and King Louis did his best. He managed to get 4 of them into the casualty box. So a valiant effort from him, and the first winner of the Player of the Week award. As we saw, Maze of Torment running out 2-1 winners against Dusseldorf Rheinfire, and Thermonuclear Pom losing out 1-2 against the Nurgle Stuff from my fridge. So in the claw mirror there, the Nurgle coming out on top in a match which actually didn't have all that much in the way of casualties. Each team only caused 1 casualty themselves. A bunch of KOs for both sides, but there was a few badly hurt. I think were from failed dodges and the like, certainly for the Bull Centaurs. But a good win for Stuff from my fridge, and Ginger Wolf gets them off to a good start. They've got a little bit of a gauntlet to run in this first part of the season. So yeah, that wraps up the week 1 results. What we'll do now is we will move on to the player, not the Player of the Week, the injury report is the next thing. I'm sorry, I'm working through my list here. So the injury report is basically, normally what you'll find happen, as I said in the previous show in Rebel Recaps, is we have the option to sort of go through every team and say, you know, this happened to this player, this happened to this player. Not really my style. I don't think you have time for that. I don't really have time for that. So what I do instead is we compile the injury report, which looks a little bit like this. So, as you can see, firstly, the most important stat in the top right is the dead loner count. Now, this is a division-wide count, and you guys need to get this as high as you can because it will be compared to the dead loner count from my last recap series when I did GMAN Division 9 back in Season 10. You guys need to win. You need to produce more dead loners than GMAN 9 did. I don't have the number to hand, but I will find out as soon as I can what their dead loner count was, and you guys need to be trying to top that because it's important that we kill off the journeyman, right? The dead loners doesn't count big guys unless we all wanted to. But it didn't last time, and you would kind of be boosting your numbers if it did. So it's dead journeymen only. And they have to be dead. Strength busters or anything doesn't count. Anyway, the rest of the injury report, as you can see on the left-hand side, we have the weekly update. And on the right-hand side, we have the season update, which will run through a sort of running total of the most casualties caused and the most casualties suffered. So we can see who's bringing the pain and who's feeling the pain. As we go through the season. So obviously for this week, the most damage suffered will be the same as the most casualties suffered because we've only had 1 week of play. And the Amazons of Veltschützerinnen are the leaders of that one. They took 5 injuries against the Bretonians, who had 3 bribes in that game. Arcani doing his best to bring the pain, as he promised he will this season. So it was 4 casualties caused by the Bretts and 1 from a failed dodge. And the key one, as you can see in the key injuries box, is Anna Botsford Comstock. One of the blitzers. That's an Agi 4 Mighty Blow Tackle Guard Stand Firm Amazonian blitzer who took an armor bust in this game and has since been fired from the roster, replaced with an entirely fresh blitzer. Now, the theory behind this for GMAN is that he's got the bye week in week 2, so a chance to get a cheeky MVP, maybe even an MVP and a touchdown on that blitzer, and hopefully just score some free SPP on that without any of the risk involved in actually fielding it on a Blood Bowl field. Elsewhere, the sit-down boys and Dusseldorf Rheinfire both taking 4 casualties apiece, so the Elves both suffering fairly high on the attrition front in the opener week. The Dark Elves of Dusseldorf Rheinfire lost a rookie lineman to a strength bust, but we're not going to shed too many tears over that. And in terms of permanent injuries, which are or certainly the minimum required to get into the key injuries box would be an MNG on a key piece. But there wasn't all that much of this week. You guys seem to be easing your way into the fight. So the sit-down boys have lost a dodge lineman James Workshop II is no more. He picked up a niggling injury, so he has been fired from that roster, which will take, what, like 70k off that roster, so it's not making a massive difference. But yeah, he's gone. So that is the end of his Blood Bowl career, if you like. Yeah, so as you can see, the most casualties caused is pretty much just the opponents of those 3 teams. Even though not all of the casualties suffered naturally equate to the casualties caused, because of course failing dodges or getting rocks to the head or anything like that would count as a casualty suffered, but not a casualty caused. So Mace of Torment and Grail Knights Cavalry managing to produce 4 casualties each. Now this won't count casualties from fouls, so this has to be pure punching in the face and producing a casualty. But none of the Chorf teams or the Nurgle team even remotely in the top 3, yeah? Because in 3rd place are 3rd Guardians, who caused 3 casualties this week against the Pro Elves. And obviously those will tick up as the season goes on. So as we get sort of 4 or 5 weeks in, you likely expect to see the Nurgle and the Chorf sort of appearing, making their way into that top 3 in the casualties cause box. And of course the Elves are both in there at the moment, as are the Amazons. That may well stay the same. They've got off to the sort of start that you might expect for Elf teams and armor value 7. So yeah, probably a trio of teams that can expect a little bit of pain this season. So moving on from the injury report, we move on to the development report. And this is, again, just rather than go through all the teams and say, ooh, this player level, blah, 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 we're cutting it down and we're producing a handy-to-read little guide here. So again, we have the weekly update on the left of the most SPP gained in terms of the whole team. And a season update will track who has gained the most SPP across the season, as in who's developing the most. And the bottom right shows the most SPP lost, which is basically a count of all the SPP that has had to be fired or has been killed from the team. And as you can see, the Amazons are, well, they've built up a very, very strong early lead here. 81 SPP on that blitzer that we saw killed, Anna Botsford Comstock. So that puts them far and far away of the 2 elf teams who lost 9 and 5 SPP respectively. So there you go. The Amazons running away with this one, but there's a long way to go for teams to catch up. Not that they want to catch up, you have to say. In terms of the most SPP, again, words. In terms of the most SPP gained, Maze of Torment lead the way, and this goes a long way to explaining why they picked up the Performance of the Week award. So 19 SPP for them this week. That includes the MVP, of course. All of them do. But that's a very, very nice haul from your opening game. And as you can see, in the key levels box in the bottom left, they managed to level up their non-strength 5 werewolf, and it rolled a double for piling on. So this is, as we said, if they can get that werewolf leveled, then it's going to be very, very interesting to see what it rolls and then how dangerous this team could potentially be. Well, it rolled a double, it's got piling on, and yeah, I would call that a pretty dangerous werewolf team. We've got 1 Clawpon wolf and 1 strength 5 wolf that is a single touchdown away from leveling again. So Maze of Torment already off to a good start with a win against the Dark Elves, and so suddenly looking like they're in very, very good shape for a strong season. Again, the sit down boys managing to level up one of their players. So despite losing the lineman, they did level the catcher, Vladimir Cosmos. He was already plus movement, dodge, wrestle and leap. He now has strip ball to add to that arsenal. So I don't think there's many teams in the division that don't have sure hands. But for any of those that don't, the Lizards that they've already played, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, the Orc team aren't running a throw, but I think they've got sure hands on the blitzer. The Vampires may not have sure hands. I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, any of those teams that don't have that, the Necro, in fact, of Maze of Torment don't have sure hands at this point. And neither do the Dark Elves of Dusseldorf Rheinfire. So we've got a Wrestle Strip Ball Leaper now to cause some issue for those teams in Vladimir Cosmos. Elsewhere, Maze of Torment also managed to level a zombie, but leveling zombies, generally speaking, is not going to be interesting enough to make it into the report. A level 4, a Dirty Player on Thermonuclear Pom. And he has picked up, I'm just checking in the background here, he has picked up Wrestle. So we've got a Dirty Player Wrestle Hobgoblin on Thermonuclear Pom. And the other interesting one this week was on the Lizard team, Third Guardians. They now have stand firm on one of their Saurus. E is his name. So Morplavac getting up to 1800 TV now. And getting on his first stand firm on a Saurus. He's already got a stand firm elsewhere on the team, on the Croxigal. But you can see here that he's now got stand firm on this player E as well. In terms of other levels, that was about it, really. An Orc Lineman leveled, a Thrall leveled for the Vampires. But again, that's all not massively interesting stuff. Although I think Cadbury Selection Box, he might be the strength 4 one for 40. But he, well, to put it simply, hasn't leveled. So Rebel.net is lying to me. Elsewhere, Grail Knight Cavalry also managed to get a level as well on one of their blitzers. It was the Blodge Blitzer. He now has Blodge Step. So, yeah, they've managed. They've got some decent blitzers on this team, and of course they've now got King Gaston back as well. Some interesting monarchy here where we have 4 kings. So it's a very interesting sort of monarchic system for the Grail Knights Cavalry. But 4 kings on this roster, and we've now got the Pom tackle piece back. He was missing, and that would have been ideal against the Amazons, wouldn't it? But King Louis the Righteous put in his best effort, as we saw, and he's now only 2 SPP away from a level as well. And King Gaston only 1 SPP from a level, so chances are that we will see 2 levels for the Bretonians next week. He's also got a chance to level Sir Dagobert down here as well, so there's a chance that Grail Knights Cavalry and Arcane could actually play themselves into a pretty strong position. Right, so all that's left to do is talk about the fixtures. It's normally quite quick for week 1 because we've not got all that much to discuss. No real need to go in the league table in too much depth. The week 2 fixtures are as follows. So Umveltschützerinnen, as we said, have the admin bye week, so we already know that will be a 1-0 victory for them, which means that they'll be making a pretty good start to the season. They'll have 6 points, they'll have not conceded a touchdown, and they'll be right up there with those at the top of the table. Maze of Torment are taking on the Happy Sons. Now, that of course is the Necro against the Orcs. So the Happy Sons, it's not easy to read how they might do, because of course we've only sort of seen half a game from them, where they were in the lead against the Vampires, but then connection issues meant that game was abandoned in the Orcs' favour. In terms of my prediction, I've gone for a Maze of Torment win here. Of course, in the previous game, I've gone for an Umveltschützerinnen win, which is just easy points. The third game is Thermonuclear Pom against Third Guardians. So this is Lizards, who've got quite a lot of guard, against Chorfs, who also, to be fair to them, have quite a lot of guard. So this one will absolutely depend on how well the Claw Mighty Blow fires. I've got this one down as a draw. If the Lizards were to receive, I can certainly see them scoring on their own drive. And then maybe the attrition hit in the second half to allow Calcium to tie that one up. But that one, of course, is a rivalry week match. There's a slight error here because there should be an explosion behind that. 2 streamers going head-to-head in this one. So one for the streamer rivalry there. That also includes Arcani, of course, who does stream his own games. Which means that there's a rivalry week here further down the list as well. Bitten Heroes against the Sit Down Boys. So that is Vampires against Pro Elves. The Vamps looking for their first point of the season after that admin-based defeat in week 1. The Sit Down Boys with a draw against the Lizards in their first game. I have this one down as a Bitten Heroes win. So the Vampires will get a little bit in the way of inducements in this one because they've lost a couple of players of their own. So they're down 100k in terms of inducements. That might allow them to pick up a bribe and start removing elves via that method as well. They do, I believe, have a dirty player. Yeah, the dirty player, Sick Fury, will be available for this one. They are missing their guard piece, but against the elves, that doesn't really matter so much. And of course, elves tend to use screens rather than cages. And vampires are very, very good at getting through screens, generally speaking, because Hypnogaze is a wonderful tool for that. So, Lord Brainlord's going to have to play this one very, very carefully. I have this one down as a vampire victory. Expecting Bitten Heroes to get off the mark with a first win of the season. Grail Knights Cavalry against Gorkacidal Tendencies is another streamer off. So we're going to have to make a little sort of streamer league here, aren't we? The first chance for points in the streamer rivalry for both Arcani and Zunk. I imagine the game will be live on both Arcani's channel and Andy Davo's channel, where Zunk lives in Twitchland. I actually have this one down as a draw. Zunk very much still in a bit of a rebuild phase with his Orcs. We saw him in the first week lose 2-0. He had all sorts of inducements that included Ripper and like 3 loner Orcs fielding in that game. One of them dead, which contributed to the dead loner count. But I can see this one ending in a draw. I think the Bretts have got a chance to get their first point of the season here. If not, maybe a decent chance of a victory. But I'm sitting on the fence. I'm predicting this one to be a 1-1 tie, which actually means that I've got both of the streamer offs down as draws here, which is a little boring, isn't it? Come on, Zord, sort it out. Game 6 sees Zamaji Severa essentially make their 3B debut because, of course, they had the bye week in week 1. So they are the bit of the dark horse here. We don't know what to expect from them. And they're going up against Dusseldorf Rhine Fire, who took a little bit of a battering, didn't they, against Maze of Torment in week 1. I got this one down as a Dark Elf win. Based off previous experience, I think the Dark Elves, if they can start causing some damage to the Norse, who are, of course, armor value 7, and 2010 TV as well, which is like super, super high. They've got 250k in the bank. That's, of course, excess from the admin win. But they've picked up like 3 levels from that admin result. They've managed to get the Ulf Wearers due a level. Their rookie Berserker has leveled up, and one of the rookie linemen has leveled as well. So they've got 3 levels coming their way. So difficult to tell what the team will look like. But the Dark Elves are actually going to have more than enough for a wizard. Could maybe even go the Eldril route here if they really wanted to. Despite all the damage they took, the only thing that they're missing is their own guard lineman as well. So they've got 12 players on their roster, and with a wizard that could be quite dangerous. Dark Elves are sort of the bashiest of the elf teams, and they've got 2 Mighty Blow Blitzers on that team. So you could expect to see some damage coming in from Dusseldorf Rheinfire as they look to avenge that opening loss. So I've gone for a Dark Elf victory there. And finally, the Nurgle Chorf Gauntlet continues for Ginger Wolf. Stuff from my fridge at home to the Greenhorns. So both of these coaches winning their opening game. But they can't both stay at the top because one of them is or both of them, is going to have to not take maximum points from this, because that's how the point system works, isn't it? I have this one down as a Nurgle win. They've already beaten one Chorf team, and based on that, don't see why they can't do it again. Of course, they'll need regen to be on point, as it was seemingly in their first game, as they didn't really take any damage at all in that one. But the Greenhorns have a couple of claw players of their own, plenty of guard, so it'll be a tough one. But I do have this one down as a Nurgle win. When you've got two claw matches like that, generally the team with the higher natural strength will come out on top. But there's every chance this one will end as a draw as well. But I've stuck my neck out and gone for a stuff from my fridge victory to keep them at the top of the table. So the last thing to do really is to just have a quick look at the league table, so those that are at the top can bask in their 1 week's worth of glory before it all goes wrong in week 2. So as it appears in game, Trainra leads the standings, but as it should actually appear on rebel.net, it's a combination of Trainra and the Amazons of Weltschützerin leading the way. Because they both won by 2 clear touchdowns, giving them the best touchdown difference. The Happy Sun, stuff from my fridge, Maze of Torment and Zmarju Severa, all with 1 touchdown victories, so either 1-0 or 2-1. You've obviously got Third Guardians and Sit Down Boys right in the middle of the table as the only 2 teams to draw, and everybody who lost at the bottom. And unfortunately for Admin Bye Week 3B, he is going to be stuck on page 2 for, we would presume, the entirety of the season. Although it has been seen in the past, none other than Full Metal himself ended up spending 11 weeks, I think it was, of a Division 1 season beneath the Admin Bye Week in the table. And only managed to resolve that around week 12 or 13 by picking up his first point of the season. So if you're down the bottom here, the first goal is to make sure that you stay above the Admin Bye Week and make sure that you're not on your own on page 2, because of course they'll only be losing 1-0 every week. So in terms of rebel.net, we do actually see Grail Knights Cavalry and Gorkacidal tendencies below the Admin Bye Week in the tables. But of course that's a little harsh, because the Admin Bye Week doesn't have the opportunity to lose by more than 1 touchdown. Alright guys, that's it for your week 1 recap. Of course we have the GMAN 3B Discord for you guys to tell me how stupid I am, point out all the stuff that I forgot to mention here, and trash talk each other until the cows come home. We will be back next week with the week 2 3B buffet. Until then, have a good week. Good luck to everyone, and especially good luck to the Admin Bye Week against the Amazons, because let's face it, we'd all love to see an Admin Bye Week victory, but it's unlikely.